You are listening to Dear Texas Radio, a program of Dear Texas Read and sponsored by Texas Authors Incorporated. If you would like to ask today's guest author a question, please do so on Twitter using the hashtag Dear Texas Radio. However, not all questions will be answered during the show. Now sit back and enjoy listening to today's show and learn about a Texas author and their books.
Hi, Happy New Year and welcome to the very first show for 2018 of Dear Texas, where we encourage folks to drop everything and read. I'm Rox Berkey, and I am so excited to have with us this evening R S Dabney. She is the author of the Soul Mender Trilogy. Welcome, RS. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be on the first show of the new year. That's exciting.
It really is. And so I want to get right into it and kind of share with our listeners. I want to start with you, RS, because you have a very interesting background, and it really is kind of, I think, a good point to explain how you decided to actually pursue some of your writing.
Sure. So I started writing when I was in elementary school, mostly for fun. I have a few silly children's books that I wrote that are really fun to read now. When I was in my teens, I started writing some really awful, angsty songs and poetry. And I always sort of had this goal of writing a novel, but I also really enjoyed science and all these other kind of aspects of education. So when I went to college, I studied wildlife biology, but continued to write. That was always a passion for me. When I graduated from college, I went to work for the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department for a bit. Met my husband through there, and so we sort of decided to go explore another agency, see where that was going to go. And I thought that would be the perfect time to actually sit down and write my novel. And so I was lucky enough that he supported me during that time, and I took 5 months off from work and actually sat down and wrote this book that had sort of been percolating in my brain for 7 years. I started it when I was in college. I would think I was reading Twilight at the time, so when I first started the Soul Mender, it was like a first-person romance, which it is not now. I put it away for 4 years. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's not the story I wanted to tell. So when I finally pulled it back out to finish it, I got to take it in the new direction that I wanted it to go, which was something bigger and deeper and more meaningful for me.
And I think that's part of the exciting. It looks from several of the reviews that I have been through and that are available on your website and online in general, that the two heroines in this particular journey really have a trek ahead of them that is fantastic. Where did you come up with the idea of having parallel universes? Because it's very interesting.
Yeah, so where I came up with it actually sounds really silly when I say it, but when I was in college, I worked for the City of College Station Parks and Recreation Department, and I worked with a bunch of guys, and we'd drive around in this truck and pick up trash, and one day they were talking about a South Park episode they'd seen about parallel universes, and they started telling me about it, and I was like, wow, I actually want to channel not that exact story, but that concept into something that I want to do that's bigger and more meaningful. And so that's sort of the initial thing that sent me in that journey. But what I loved about parallel universes was that I got to take, especially in the direction I took them, it's a lot of people have utilized that in their stories, but how I took it was that I took one person basically, split their soul in two and put one in each world, and so technically you would have a good soul in one world and a counter soul, their bad soul, in another world. And that's where my two heroines come in, is they're the same person, but two halves of the soul. And so really fun to write. It lets me really look into their characters and play with the good and the bad side, and sort of realize, to me, while I'm writing, and hopefully when people are reading as well, sides actually have some good and bad within them, and that that there's a lot more depth than just our ideas of what's good and what's bad. And those two characters, the parallel universes, sort of allowed me to explore that topic.
And I think that's what makes it so very, very interesting, because it is more along the lines of one soul versus the other soul out of the same person. So something that also struck me in this is this setting from a kind of a mountainous, Rocky Mountain kind of setting, which you speak from authority. That's kind of how your background was, right?
Yeah, so I grew up in southern Utah, in Moab, Utah. But when we moved there in the early 90s, it was a really small kind of shut down town. It had been an old uranium town. And so we had to go to Colorado, to the town of Grand Junction, to do a lot of our bigger stuff, including like going to the movie theater and that sort of thing. And so I sort of fell in love with that whole area. And when I sat down to write this book, I was living in Texas, but I set my main character as being from Grand Junction. She went to college in Boulder. And so the story, as it progresses, takes place all over the world, all the way from Colorado to Mexico to Iraq. And so it happens everywhere. But I liked the idea of setting the home base of my characters, kind of the comforting idea of home, in a place that was familiar and kind of really connected to me in my childhood. And so that's why I chose to set it in that setting.
And Riley Dale, the primary character, as it were, in book one, which is the Soul Mender, really goes through some significant trials and tribulations, as well as learns about her history or her ancestry. That has to be a fun way to take it as well. So current, very much so, but also a little bit of historical thought process.
Yeah, so I love playing with history and some of the things we have as concrete ideas in our heads. I wanted this story to be set in a modern world. It's fictitious, but a modern and realistic world, because some of the issues and topics I talked about are things that are happening in our world, and the things that Riley and her counter soul Oz are working toward are real problems that we face every day. Remind me of the last part. I started off on that and I totally got lost.
No, you did great. I mean, it's finding and taking some ancestral thing as a premise for
and so,
how change has to be taken forward into today's world.
Yeah,
it's kind of the...
And so one of the pieces, like I said, is it's set in this modern time, but these two characters, as they sort of go through the story, learn about each other. They absolutely hate each other at first. They hate what the other stands for. But as they go on this journey to sort of try to stay alive as different groups come after them, they also realize, because of their ancestry, because of things that have happened in the past, and I do play with actual events that happen, they realize that there's actually a way that together, if they can figure out a way to come together, they can sort of restore this balance to humanity and sort of bind the world back together before we all destroy ourselves. So yes, I take history, I take historical things and play with them and twist them so that they sort of fit my plot line, mixed with a realistic and modern type of world.
And that's amazing. And then book two, which has also been available for some time, The Peacekeeper, kind of continues Riley Dale's exploration from a different perspective, right? She actually ventures back. She tries to go and return.
Yeah, so getting to know the characters, it's introducing the characters to the parallel universe, to the things that they're going to face and to the options they have going forward. Book two, The Peacekeeper, is a lot about the decisions they make and about the growth they have to take to get there. When Riley and Oz decide that, yes, they want to take on this mission and try to kind of save us before we all destroy ourselves, there's a lot of growth that has to happen there. These girls are 22 years old. One has sort of come from this privileged life, one who's had a really tough life, and both in their own ways have to sort of grow up. And book 2 is a darker book. We get introduced to new characters, new allies, new bad guys. The bad guys get worse. And so, yeah, book 2 is I consider sort of the growth period for all the characters, even the villains. They get a bit worse, and my characters sort of have to make some big decisions about their lives and who they are and who they need to be successful in this endeavor.
And you know, by all accounts, you have villains that people love to hate. You know, sometimes that's the trigger to keep your audiences engaged with what you're trying to do. She has a very, very lofty focus that she's trying to do in book 2 and as it ends up. And one of the things I want to do, because we're about ready to take a short break, but one of the things I want to do when we come back is I want to actually share with the listeners book number 3, which is, don't tell them yet, but it's coming out soon.
Yes, I'm really excited about book 3, and I will hold off talking about it until after the break, but it will be released on January 20th, so sort of this whole project is coming to an end for me, and I'm really excited about it. And I'm excited about the conclusion to these characters' journey, because they have become such a huge part of my life, and I have put them through these horrible things, and now it's sort of my turn to redeem myself for being such a horrible person to them. No, I'm kidding. But I am excited to have a conclusion. I'm not sure if it's the conclusion people expect. It might be. But it's definitely the conclusion I saw for this story, and I'm really, really excited for people to get to read it and sort of get an ending to this huge piece of my life that I've been so lucky to share with everybody.
So we're going to take a short break and listen to our sponsors, and then come back and continue the discussion with R S Dabney and the Soul Mender Trilogy. So stay tuned.
Defiance Press and Publishing of Conroe, Texas, publishes high-quality, principled fiction and nonfiction, current events, and children's literature with a special emphasis on God, country, liberty, and conservatism to serve the diverse interests of our readers. Defiance Press is a fully independent book publishing company. We handle the details from manuscript to market. Contact us for more details at www.defiancepress.com or call 713-429-4366. Love to read? Love to meet authors in person? Then check out bookfestival.network to find a book festival in your region of Texas. We are adding book festival events throughout the year, so sign up to get notices and even a coupon towards purchase of a Texas author's book. Sign up at bookfestival.network. Hello, Texas authors. My name is Randy James, coming to you from my Carrollton recording studio, where I spend time writing and producing commercials for my radio endorsement clients as well as my private freelance clients. I'd like the opportunity to help you sell more books with a commercial like this and get listeners of Dear Texas Radio excited about your title, all at a special introductory price, available to members of the Texas Association of Authors. Call or text 214-762-1942. That's 214-762-1942. Attention students in grades 6 through 12. Do you love to write? Texas Authors Institute of History is kicking off its first statewide short story contest for students. It's free to enter and a great way to begin your career in writing. Sign up at shortstory.texasauthors.institute for complete rules. Again, to enter, go to shortstory.texasauthors.institute. You can win cash prizes and an opportunity to be published.
Attention all ebook authors. Are you looking for the perfect place to sell your ebooks? Look no further than ebg247.com. Get your ebooks listed on our front page with a real-time royalty tracking dashboard and receive 80% of all your sales. That's ebg247.com. Why go anyplace else? No matter what your book genre or its cost, we make it the perfect place to sell your stories. That's ebg247.com. It's the web's best place to sell all your ebooks.
You are listening to Dear Texas Radio, a program of Dear Texas Read and sponsored by Texas Authors Incorporated. If you would like to ask today's guest author a question, please do so on Twitter using the hashtag Dear Texas Radio. However, not all questions will be answered during the show. Now sit back and enjoy listening to today's show and learn about a Texas author and their books.
Hi, this is Rox Berkey, and welcome back to Dear Texas. I am very excited to continue our discussion this evening with R S Dabney, and I want to bring it up with Book 3 of the Soul Mender Trilogy, which is due out when, RS?
Book 3 is called The World Finder, and it will be out on January 20th. I'm actually having a launch party for the event in Austin. It's an open event. I have the event listed on Facebook, and so if anybody would like to attend, just RSVP through there, and we'd love to have you there. I will have all the books, all 3 books, all kinds of cool merchandise, food and drinks. It's just sort of a celebration to conclude everything that myself and all the folks who have helped out with this to sort of celebrate and bring everything to a close.
Now, how long was it to get Book 3 finalized and bring the characters to the conclusion that you wanted them to come to? Has that been a longer project than the first 2 in the trilogy?
So it wasn't a longer project necessarily than the first, because the first, as a new author, I'm writing it. I have no idea about the industry, no idea about a lot of things, including how to write to my best ability. And so that, you sit down and you write it, and then that took years to edit and get published. But it definitely, the third book was a harder project for me than the second one. The second one I was able to write in 3 months. The third one took me 6 months, and a big piece of that was making sure I got everything just right. So if for the folks who have read my books, they know that with 1 and 2, I left off with cliffhangers on everything. Well, I can't do that for the third book. I actually have to give people an ending, and it has to be a satisfying ending. And so that was definitely some pressure I felt was doing justice for my readers, doing justice for myself, and definitely doing justice to my characters. I hope that I have gotten it to that point. I'm really pleased with it. If I could ask my characters, I hope they'd be pleased with it as well. And we will see what readers think. But I am really excited about this, and it was there was some pressure to get it right.
And so for people that want to go to this event that you're having in Austin, what is your Facebook page so that they can easily find that information?
Sure. I am listed as R S Dabney. You can just go to Facebook and type it into the search engine, R S Dabney. I can even pull up, let me see what the link is. But it should pop up. I have everything pretty much in purple and black and white, which is the color of the first book, and I sort of utilize that thematically throughout. So when you see R S Dabney and all the purple, black, and white, you are at the right place. And then the event is listed on the page. So it looks like if you go to facebook.com/R S Dabney author, you will be able to find my page and the event.
Awesome. And so that would be a fun event for people that are near Austin, Texas to be able to go to, let alone that Austin's such a pretty place to be able to hold an event. What a great idea. Now, you also have a website, and your website is rsdabney.com?
Correct, yes.
Or Soul Mender Trilogy will also get folks there. And that's a lot of background about you and some extra details that folks may find interesting. You also have an author page, I believe, on Amazon, right?
I do, yes. Yep.
And so you like to do events, and Austin is certainly one of those events. What other events are you prepared to go to this year? Have you kind of started getting your schedule kicked in?
Yeah, so one of the fun things that we tried out this year was going to Comic-Cons. And so I went to 5 or 6 Comic-Cons this past year and actually did really well. I had no idea how sort of a sci-fi fantasy type book would do that's not really hard sci-fi, hard fantasy. It's more kind of urban fantasy, paranormal. But there was definitely a market, and there's definitely people looking for novels at these events. And so our plan this year is to sign up for as many Comic-Cons as we can, local book festivals. I'm always looking for new ideas and new ways to sort of reach folks. And so we're hoping to get my schedule kind of finalized in the next few weeks for the year. And I usually try to do an event every month in different places, especially across tech. I try to venture out at least into the neighboring states. So I post all of that on my Facebook page and on the website. So if anybody is interested, check that in the next few weeks. And I should be at least traveling to a city if you're in Texas sometime this year.
Oh, there you go. Now you're also very, very active on social media. So getting that information out on Facebook or Twitter and some of the other avenues is something that you just do as a matter of course, and it seems like it's been helpful to you for those other authors that might be listening. Is that a fair statement?
Definitely. Yeah, and I'm not, even though I'm a millennial and I do utilize that stuff on my own, it was hard for me to get into sort of that self-promotion mode. That did not come naturally to me. I'm sort of an introvert who plays really well at being an extrovert, and so I sort of had to force that. But I am active on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I try to do Pinterest some. I've always responded to emails when people email me or message me, and it has been great. I've formed some great relationships with folks who I've met at Comic-Cons or different events who bought the books, read them, and I've been able to interact with them. I've been able to update them when something new comes out or if I'm offering free chapters or something like that. So it's been a great way to, I guess, bring some awareness about the book to folks, but also to sort of and develop these relationships with some of the readers. I think that's been the neatest thing for me through social media, and I'm glad that I sort of sucked it up and just went for it. And I would encourage other authors to do the same, because even if it doesn't come naturally, and even if you feel like, you come off as pompous or arrogant, I think it's important to be out there and interacting with people. And it's okay to post pictures and post things about your books, because there are some people out there who are interested in that.
There you go, and there are lots of readers that like all different kinds of genres. And one of the things I found the most interesting when I first noticed, the Soul Mender specifically, was the very unique cover design that you have that you carried into book 2, The Peacekeeper. I have not seen book 3 yet, so I can't speak to that. But how did those designs come about? Because they're very simple yet distinctive.
So with the covers, I wanted something that was different and that would stand out. And I did want to keep it simple and elegant. And I knew the theme of this trilogy was sort of the good versus evil, split into two souls. And so immediately my mind went to yin and yang, and so the black and white, the split sides. There's a musical out there called Wicked, and the poster for it has these two witches split, and I loved that. I've always loved that image. And so I sort of drew some inspiration from different places, from that Wicked poster, from the yin and yang symbol. There's images all over the internet of sort of split souls, split faces. But I wanted to sort of take it in a new direction. And I have a great friend, Andy, who does amazing graphic art. And so I got with him on this and sort of told him all these ideas I had. And he put this down, and he's created all 3 covers for me. And they're all spectacular. But we worked together going back and forth on that. I wanted it to be thematic, identifiable, and simple.
And I think you achieved that very nicely. And it's exciting. So now we've got book 3 coming out on January the 20th, and that's very exciting. So now what? Do you have any other projects that are in the hopper?
Yes, I do. I actually had a really amazing opportunity come up for me this summer and signed with an agency for a future project. And so I've started working on that. I'm about 3/4 done with the first book. It will be another trilogy. I keep saying I'm going to write a standalone, but I get wrapped up into these trilogies. But I'm really excited about that one as well. It's a little bit different, a little bit more fantasy than realistic as my other one was. But I think folks who have enjoyed the Soul Mender Trilogy will enjoy this new project.
And that's very exciting. So again, we have R S Dabney, and book 3 of her Soul Mender Trilogy will be coming out. But if you could go ahead and, before we take a break, I know that you're going to be in Austin on the 20th, but recap your website and your Facebook page for the listeners so they can make sure and see you whenever possible.
Absolutely. My website is rsdabney.com or the soulmendertrilogy.com. Both will take you to the same place. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find me at R S Dabney Author. And I love getting messages from folks. I love answering questions, talking about the books, talking about other books. So please, if anyone would like to reach out, do so.
Cool. And it's been so fun to have you this evening. I hope we get to have you again on Dear Texas. And thank you for bringing this first show to a really fun conclusion, RS.
Yeah, thank you, Rox. This was great. Thank you so much for hosting me.
Thank you for listening to Dear Texas Radio, where we encourage everyone to drop everything and read a great book by a Texas author. More information about this show or any of our shows from the past years can be found at radio.deartexas.info. That's radio.deartexas.info. I'm Randy James, your announcer for Dear Texas Radio.